scenes. Ajax is one of those things, an API call. Mobile apps can do this behind the scenes using sometimes like a JSON blob or some XML to communicate back and forth with the application. And what this means is that the content that you want to be accelerated can't be, because it's highly customized and it's tailored to the end user. Outdated content in general is bad. If you have a news site that's trying to update as quickly as possible when news breaks, or if you have a sports site that's trying to keep up with the scores, there's a natural balance there between performance and being able to do that update in real time. And so this is something that John brought up earlier tonight. In general, we think of content in two slices, static and dynamic. And there is a carved out piece here where the dynamic content isn't always just non-static. There's this piece of event-driven content. And the example I always use is a sports score. So in a soccer game, for example, the sports score is always 0-0 until it becomes 0-1. It's just inevitable. If we knew when the score was going to change, we could take action on the caching layer to go and refresh that content. But in the unpredictable nature of that type of dynamic content puts it in this realm of event-driven content. Some other examples are even things like stock prices, right? A stock price is the same until it changes. Or a breaking news story is the same until it changes. And that's what we try to bucket as this new concept called event-driven content. There certainly is some content that is truly dynamic. If you go to a checkout page on an e-commerce site and you click the purchase button, that's something that's never going to be repeatable, right? So it's very unique. It's one time, something that a caching system or a CDN can't take care of for you. But there's also many of these events that are much of this content that is driven by events. It looks like it's dynamic, but again, it falls into the realm of it's the same until it changes, and it's kind of a unique concept that we've attacked. Right, and it's typically driven by an event making it update. So the soccer game, for example, during halftime, the score doesn't change. That's just something that it is known. And the old concept of having a client or an edge server or a CDN or even just a local caching server check in with the origin or the backend to see if that's updated. Categorizing this content as event-driven allows us to do some tricks where we don't have to do that constant chatter and updating. The secret sauce here is that it involves the concept of purging or invalidation. So if the origin, which is the owner of this, like the back end, right? So the owner of the changes and the owner of the content can notify out beyond its border that the content is changing, then it can instruct a caching layer or CDN to basically cache that indefinitely and then notify when the content's updated. So, for example, again, the soccer score or even the stock price, right? If the origin can notify the edge that something has changed, the edge can keep that indefinitely and not have to check it back, and the concept of these low TTLs kind of falls out of play, right? But the concept of purging doesn't work unless it's quick, because if you have a system that's kind of a black box and it's out and you're instructing to do things, but it takes 5 minutes to do, then that doesn't play well, right? So typically, next slide here, is that it's either controllable in your own environment, in your own ecosystem, where you have Varnish is a piece of open source software that is often used in front of it's kind of the de facto Drupal or de facto WordPress caching layer that goes in front there, and often it's in the same data center where it's part of your application, and you can tell it what to do. It's kind of an extension of your backend. That's a WordPress or Drupal, for example. Those systems can tell Varnish to invalidate content and not have that content flow all the way back to the origin where it has to hit the database or the PHP stack behind those systems. And what Fastly does is actually take that Varnish layer and extend it out into a global presence, but we still maintain that quick invalidation piece that allows you to take advantage of this event-driven concept where you can cache these things out on the edge longer without having the chatter of the TTLs, and also therefore increasing the cache hit rates. That's the concept behind this event-driven concept. So I zoomed through this. I know that we're kind of at the end of the night here, and thanks for staying. That is my little pitch. And again, if anyone, if it hits a chord, or if it's something that you worry about, or if you're running a WordPress or a Drupal site or any other website, this is something that we solve all the time, and happy to just share best practices and some concepts we do if you want to come reach out. And it's interesting stuff that I love talking about. So again, thanks for staying.
Or if you have really technical questions, I'm never going to answer.
Oh, good. Yeah, go.
You got a question, right?
Not technical at all. At all. I'm curious because I guess advantage of technology because obviously you're doing something better than your competitors, but you've done something pretty disruptive recently. You've gotten a lot of, backing of what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And shown us a lot of what you've been doing, but what are you doing differently than your competitors? Because in technology this day and age, there's no one that doesn't have 3 or 4 competitors. If it's not in your same city, it's in New York or San Francisco or whatever. What are you doing differently?
Yeah, good question. So we certainly do have competitors, and this type of software is location agnostic, right? So a lot of companies that are based in the U.S. still have clients in China, for example, and it's just part of growing and part of the strategy of making sure that your product is available around the world. So some of the key things that we do differently is our network and our platform, if you will, has been built in the last 4 years, 5 years. Our software is very different. We've taken the approach of, instead of kind of spreading out across the world with these pizza box size 1U servers that we have large servers that have on the realm of a terabyte of RAM, and we're 100% SSD. So there's some tricks that we do on the hardware side and on the networking side that are above traditional CDN. And there's a whole spectrum too. So many of us have dealt in the startup world where we're starting off with like an S3 or S2 Google Cloud, and it's that growth and performance that triggers wanting to go to a CDN, figuring out how to address that problem. And that's as simple as just kind of clicking a button and turning on CloudFront. It's out of the box. It's kind of accelerate my static content all the way up into some of these more advanced features that we're doing, where we can really offload the system and push a lot of the logic out to the edge where you want to go back to the. Any other? Throw me the tech question. There's a tech. If not, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to find me. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh.